He slammed the car door so hard the windows shook, his breath sharp, his jaw clenched as he stormed into the glass-walled office overlooking the city. Without slowing down, without reading a single line, he grabbed the divorce papers from the desk and signed his name in bold strokes. He smirked as he tossed the pen aside, convinced he had just won. What he didn't know, what no one in that room understood, was that with that signature, he had just destroyed his entire empire. Before I reveal what happened next, take 1 second to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. James Caldwell straightened his suit and leaned back in the chair, confidence radiating from every movement. "She thinks she's clever," he muttered, "but she was never built for this world." Across the room, his assistant stood frozen, watching the papers disappear into a folder marked "Finalized." Her fingers tightened around the tablet in her hands, eyes flicking from the documents to James's face. She had read the papers. He hadn't, and that single difference would change everything.
Miles away, Eleanor sat calmly in her penthouse, the city humming beneath her like white noise. She stirred her coffee slowly, eyes fixed on the screen in front of her. A message blinked into view. Signed. She exhaled, not in relief, not in excitement, but in quiet confirmation. "It's done," she whispered. For years, Eleanor had watched James transform from a brilliant strategist into a man drunk on power. She had stood beside him through endless nights, whispered plans, risky moves, and victories that made headlines. But somewhere along the way, ambition had turned into entitlement, and entitlement had turned into betrayal. She had discovered the affair months ago. The secret accounts, the shell companies, the lies wrapped in charm and rehearsed smiles. James thought he was careful. He thought Eleanor trusted him too much to look deeper. He was wrong. Back in the office, James's phone buzzed nonstop. Advisors, investors, board members. He ignored them all, basking in what he believed was freedom. "Call the board later," he said dismissively. "Today is about closing chapters." The assistant hesitated. "Sir, are you sure you don't want legal to—" "I said later," James snapped. "This is routine." Routine. That word echoed like a cruel joke. Eleanor's lawyer called moments later. "Everything is moving exactly as planned," he said. Eleanor nodded. "Good. Let him feel comfortable." James always moved fastest when he thought he was winning. That evening, James poured himself a drink and stared out over the city skyline. He dialed Eleanor, his tone casual, almost amused. "He really dragged this out," he said. "You should have known how this ends." Eleanor's voice was calm. "I do know how it ends." He laughed. "Then we're finally on the same page." They weren't. Later that night, the first crack appeared. An alert flashed across James's phone. One of his core holdings had dipped sharply. He frowned, refreshing the screen. Another alert followed, then another. "Market fluctuation," he muttered. But the numbers didn't stabilize. They dropped faster. Calls started coming in, one investor after another, voices tense, confused. "James, we're seeing asset freezes." "That's impossible," he snapped. "Nothing moves without my approval." Yet things were moving, rapidly. Eleanor watched the same numbers from her screen, her expression unreadable. She had memorized every clause, every trigger, every hidden switch James had activated the moment he signed. James's assistant approached cautiously. "Sir, legal is asking if you authorized the transfers." "What transfers?" James demanded. Her silence answered him. That was when his phone buzzed again, this time with a video message. Unknown sender. He pressed play. Eleanor appeared on screen, standing tall, composed, her eyes steady. "You always underestimated silence," she said. "You thought patience meant weakness. You thought betrayal would go unnoticed. But everything you signed today did exactly what it was designed to do." James's smile faded. "What is this?" "You should read the fine print," Eleanor continued, "but it's already too late." The screen went dark. James stood frozen, the weight of unease settling into his chest for the first time. By morning, the headlines exploded.
Major holdings shift amid high-profile divorce. Billion-dollar transfers raise questions. James stormed into his office, shouting, demanding answers. Lawyers avoided eye contact. Advisors hesitated before speaking. "You signed full authorization," one finally said. "Irrevocable." "That's not possible," James growled. "I own those assets."
The lawyer swallowed. Not anymore. James's breath hitched. "Call Eleanor." When she answered, her voice was calm, almost gentle. "You should have read what you signed." "This is sabotage," he hissed. "You planned this." "No," she replied. "You did. The moment you betrayed me." James slammed the phone down, rage giving way to panic. He began liquidating assets, pulling strings, making calls, but every move triggered another collapse. Each attempt to regain control tightened the trap. By the end of the week, James was no longer in control of the boardrooms he once ruled. Doors closed, calls went unanswered. His name, once synonymous with power, now carried caution. And Eleanor? She remained unseen, unbothered. Because this was only the beginning.
James barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, numbers flashed behind his eyelids. Red arrows, falling graphs, contracts dissolving. By sunrise, his phone was already vibrating nonstop, the screen lighting up with missed calls and unread messages. He answered one. "James, we have a serious problem," the voice on the other end said, breathless. "3 subsidiaries just transferred controlling interest overnight." "That's impossible," James snapped. "I didn't authorize anything." There was a pause. "You did, when you signed." James felt the air leave his lungs. "Send me everything, now." Minutes later, his office filled with lawyers, advisors, and executives who no longer met his eyes with respect, only concern. Documents were spread across the table, highlighted sections glowing like wounds.
"These clauses," one lawyer said carefully, "they're activated by marital dissolution combined with executive authorization." James stared. "That's boilerplate." "No," the lawyer replied. "It's surgical." His assistant spoke quietly. "Sir, Eleanor's name is now listed as primary controller." James slammed his fist on the table. "She doesn't run anything. I do." Not anymore. By midday, the media had caught the scent of blood. Financial networks ran non-stop coverage. Analysts speculated. Former allies gave vague interviews, distancing themselves with rehearsed concern. James called one of his oldest partners. "Mark, you've got to help me. You know how this works." Mark sighed. "I do. And that's why I can't."
"What does that mean?" James demanded. "It means you didn't just sign divorce papers," Mark said. "You signed control away, and everyone knows it." James's voice dropped. "You're abandoning me?" "I'm surviving," Mark replied. "You should have seen this coming." The line went dead. James paced his office like a trapped animal. "Get me Eleanor," he barked. "She's not taking calls," the assistant said. "Then I'll go to her." Security stopped him at the penthouse entrance. Polite, firm, unmovable. "She knew," James muttered, stepping back into the elevator. "She planned this." That night, alone in his penthouse, James finally opened the full agreement. Page after page of language he had skipped, clauses nested inside clauses, each one triggered by his own authority.
He whispered, "No, no." His phone buzzed. A message from Eleanor. "You always said I didn't understand your world. You were right. I understood it better." James called immediately. She answered. "You ruined me," he said, his voice cracking. "You ruined yourself," Eleanor replied. "I just stopped protecting you." "You could have confronted me," he snapped. "We could have talked." "I did," she said calmly. "You lied." Silence filled the line. James's voice softened. "You loved me." "I did," Eleanor said. "That's why I waited. I wanted you to reveal who you really were."
The call ended. By the end of the second week, James's empire resembled a hollow shell. Offices emptied, staff resigned quietly. Vendors demanded guarantees he could no longer provide. He stood in a boardroom where his name once commanded silence. Now, no one waited for him. Another advisor spoke bluntly. "Your reputation is collapsing faster than the assets." James laughed bitterly. "She didn't just take my money." "No," the advisor agreed. "She took your future." Before I reveal what happened next, take 1 second to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from, because this is where everything starts to fall apart. James's name became a warning. Deals stalled when he entered rooms. Invitations stopped coming. Even old friends avoided association. He returned home to an empty penthouse that felt colder each night. He replayed every moment, every betrayal, every time Eleanor had tried to speak while he dismissed her. For the first time, fear replaced arrogance. And somewhere across the city, Eleanor watched quietly, not with joy, but with certainty, because the final collapse hadn't even begun. By the third week, James Caldwell no longer recognized his own life. The calls had stopped, not because the crisis was over, but because no one believed he mattered anymore. His once busy office floor sat silent, lights dimmed, desks abandoned. The name on the building still bore his legacy, but the power behind it was gone. He sat alone in the boardroom late at night, staring at a wall of glass that reflected a man he barely recognized. His suit hung looser now. His confidence was gone. All that remained was the echo of decisions he could not undo. He dialed Mark one last time. "Don't," Mark said immediately. "There's nothing left to say." "There has to be something," James whispered. "A loophole, a way back." Mark exhaled slowly. "James, she didn't just outmaneuver you. She anticipated you. Every move you're thinking of now was already blocked months ago." James closed his eyes. "Why didn't I see it?" "Because you didn't think you needed to," Mark replied. "That was the mistake." The line went dead.
James returned to the penthouse that no longer felt like home. The silence pressed in on him, heavy and unforgiving. Every room carried a memory, celebrations, laughter, plans for the future. All of it poisoned now by the knowledge that he had betrayed the one person who truly knew him. He found a tablet on the counter. A final message from Eleanor waited. "Look around," her voice said calmly when he pressed play. "This is what arrogance leaves behind. You thought power made you untouchable. You thought betrayal had no cost. You were wrong." James sank into a chair, hands trembling. "I didn't mean for it to end like this," he whispered to an empty room. The media didn't share his regret. Headlines exploded across every platform.
Billionaire fall from grace finalized. Divorce documents reveal strategic takeover. James Caldwell, a cautionary tale. Even analysts who once praised his brilliance now dissected his downfall with clinical detachment. His name became shorthand for arrogance, for betrayal, for overconfidence. James tried one last move, an emergency injunction. It failed within hours. The judge's ruling was brief. "You authorized the transfers. The language is clear. This court finds no grounds to reverse them." That was it. The empire was no longer his. He wandered through the company headquarters one final time. His footsteps echoed through empty halls. Screens were dark. His name had already been removed from the executive directory.
Everything he built was still standing. He just didn't own it anymore. Across the city, Eleanor watched from a distance. She didn't attend interviews. She didn't celebrate publicly. Her victory wasn't loud. It was complete. She had never wanted to destroy him. She had wanted him to face the weight of his choices. James sat on the steps outside the building as evening fell, city lights flickering on one by one. His phone buzzed with a final notification. Eleanor Caldwell emerges as major power broker. He stared at the screen for a long time. "She won," he said quietly. Not because she fought harder, but because she waited longer.
He finally understood the truth that came too late. The moment he betrayed her, he had already lost. The divorce papers were just the confirmation. Every lie, every dismissal, every moment he thought himself untouchable, they all led here. Before the world moved on, before his name faded into history, James Caldwell realized the most expensive lesson of all. You don't lose everything the moment you sign the papers. You lose it the moment you believe betrayal has no consequences. And if this story shocked you, take 1 second to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from, because stories like this remind us that betrayal always collects its debt.